Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I take this opportunity to thank the Institute for Social Accountability and the entire umbrella of OCOA Uchumi initiative for organizing the Kenya Conference on Debt and Development, which is expected to feed into the third edition of the African Conference on Debt and Development to take place in Dhaka. This Nairobi conference is one of its kind, designed to generate discussion on one of the most critical matters for all African countries today, the accumulation of public debt. Public debt stock has experienced exponential growth, not in just in Kenya, but in the entire African continent. Public debt stock in Kenya has risen from 1.89 trillion in 2013 and is fast approaching the Kenya shillings 10 trillion today. As a share of GDP, this will remain above 68%, and the debt servicing expenditures will hit Kenya shillings 1.6 trillion for the financial year 23-24. This rate of accumulation has become a matter of concern for every Kenyan today. African countries are immensely dependent on inflows of credit and capital investment, the cost of which has increased against declining access to concessional financial resources. Coupled to this is the inefficient use or ineffective allocation of borrowed funds. This has resulted in inequitable distribution of public resources and the growth of deadweight public debt, which has minimal contribution to economic growth, but demands critical resource of its repayment. This brings the concept of the intergenerational transfer of costs and benefits of public debt stock repayments, which is also referred to under Chapter 12 of our Constitution. The future of debt sustainability is dependent on economic growth. Countries need to downsize expenditures to realistic levels, maximize on efficient use of revenues and borrowed resources in order to drive economic growth in a sustainable and equitable manner. As such, African countries need to spur economic growth above 10%, sustained for the next 10 years. This growth should be driven by homegrown economic resources and industries, with countries supporting one another with ready market for outputs, both products and services. So what is the decision-making environment for the legislature today? Apart from the factors already indicated, the current situation is characterized need for the allocation of resources dedicated towards critical sectors and interventions such as education and healthcare, need to create jobs, address the high cost of living, arising from the rising inflation, depreciation of the domestic currency against major world currencies, and the increasing impact of climate change and tightening financial access. The Kenyan legislature is an evolved one since the 2010 Constitution. Introduced the power of the purse and public participation in the budgeting process. The refreshed role of a legislature therefore bases its roots on the legislative mandate under the Constitution. As such, the Constitution contains provisions that guide public debt management. For example, the definition of public debt is provided under Article 214, while further provisions provide for borrowing terms, accountability, transparency, and reporting. The refreshed role of the legislator is also dependent on the legal framework underpinning the public sector, the public finance management architecture, or law. A legislature is more effective in legal framework that promotes accountability, transparency, and public participation in the sourcing and use of public debt. An efficient legal framework should be able to create a self-regulatory environment and enhance oversight of public resources when many people or agencies are involved. This could have the overall benefit of lowering the cost of oversight and broadening the oversight parameters, which could bring onto the fold aspects that might have slipped the attention of the legislature. Internal structures of the legislature should also mirror the public finance framework and evolve with it. A year ago, the National Assembly took advantage of our legal framework to establish the Public Debt and Privatization Committee under its standing orders pursuant to Article 1241 of the Constitution. This is a 15-member committee to which I have the honor of being the first chairperson, together with my good friend, Honorable Daktari Makali Mulu, MP, as the vice chairperson. The National Assembly noted the exponential growth of the public debt stock and understood that there was a need to innovate and dedicate its attention based on its capacity to have a beneficial impact on the prosperity of the country. Since the committee came into existence a year ago, it has produced and tabled 5 reports touching on different aspects of public debt management and other issues such as pension expenditures. These reports have provided the basis for critical House resolutions designed to improve accountability, transparency, the efficiency in the use of public debt resources. The committee is tracking the implementation of these resolutions. In addition, the committee has noted that there are shortcomings with the current legal framework that create gaps in the regulation of public debt stock in Kenya. And as such, the committee is working on a number of legislative proposals to be presented to the National Assembly and the public for consideration and ultimate enactment. The overall aim of our legislative agenda is to ensure that the oversight stature of public debt moves from the current reactive one to proactive one by regulating how public debt is procured, negotiated, and utilized. As I conclude, it's important to note that public sector credit remains a critical resource in transcending the limits set by budget constraints. The financing of the fiscal deficit in a sustainable manner will be carried in not only the repayment of public debt, but also in financing the delivery of services by the public sector. In this regard, the committee, on behalf of the National Assembly, is using the following policies to guide the implementation of its mandate. 1, prudent management of public stock of debt, fiscal consolidation, enhancing public participation, transparency, and accountability, increased effectiveness in resource allocation, and increased efficiency of use of the resources, fiscal discipline, and fiscal commitment. I thank you all, and on behalf of the National Assembly, the Public Debt and Privatization Committee, you can count on our support in sustaining this agenda and disseminating the same information for the common understanding of all. I thank you.